Hey everyone, this video is part of a collaboration with several other history YouTubers, all in honor of Women's History Month. More information on that at the end of the video. If you're well versed with the classics of Western literature, whether they be from ancient Greece, Rome, the Renaissance, or even the 19th century, then you've probably heard the name Semiramis. She's the mythical queen who founded and conquered empires, built great cities like Babylon, colossal monuments, and was the ultimate femme fatale in all of history. According to HWF Sags, she was the embodiment of superwoman, preeminent in beauty, counsel, military ability, sexual prowess, administrative skill, and ambition. The last trait led her, when left the widow of a king, to build Babylon and many other cities in Mesopotamia and beyond. She's featured most prominently in the works of the Greek writer Diodorus Siculus, but also in the writings of Herodotus, Plutarch, Ctesias, Strabo, and several other ancient writers and historians. She appears in Dante's Divine Comedy and two of Shakespeare's plays, Titus Andronicus and Taming of the Shrew. She's also the subject of a tragedy by Voltaire called Semiramis, which was later turned into an opera. The Russian Empress, Catherine the Great, was once called the Semiramis of the North. There are also old Armenian legends about her, claiming that along with being a queen, she was a powerful sorceress. Modern-day Assyrians consider her to be a great heroine, and even today, many Assyrian parents name their daughters Semiramis. I could go on about this, but as one who's fascinated with history, I'm more interested in who she was, assuming she actually existed, and how she may have become so famous, whether it was in ancient times or during our own day. It turns out, the stories of Semiramis are based on an actual woman who also has a fascinating story. This woman was the ancient Assyrian queen, Sammuramat. In the last 2 centuries, archaeologists have made thousands of stunning discoveries all over the Middle East. In northern Iraq, where the ancient kingdom and later empire of Assyria was once based, 2 statues dedicated to the Babylonian god of knowledge, Nabu, were found in the ruins of the city of Kalhu, also known as Kala or Nimrud. They mention the name Sammuramat. Another object, a stele to be precise, was found in the old Assyrian capital of Ashur in an area where memorials dedicated to various Assyrian kings and high officials were once kept. One of them was dedicated to a queen. Dating back to the early 9th century BCE, it reads, Sammuramat, Lady of the Palace of Shamshi-Adad, King of all, King of Ashur, Mother of Adad-Nirari, King of all, King of Ashur, daughter-in-law of Shalmaneser, King of the 4 regions. It was very rare for a female, even a queen, to have been mentioned in any commemorative inscription, let alone some sort of memorial park like that found in Ashur. That means that Sammuramat, the woman historians and archaeologists believe to have been the inspiration for Semiramis, must have been someone extraordinary. Unfortunately, all that we have to go on her are simple monuments devoid of details like the one mentioned above. However, we can start to piece together her story based on the world in which she lived in. Ruling from their homeland, which occupied the northern area of Iraq along the Tigris River and its tributaries, the Assyrians were the greatest military and economic power of their time. They had a long history in the region, dating back at least to the year 2000 BCE. Over the centuries, the fortunes of their kingdom and later empire had expanded and contracted several times, but by the 9th century BCE, they were once again, without question, the most powerful state in the ancient world. Their empire's borders stretched from the Mediterranean Sea in the east to just beyond the foothills of the Zagros Mountains in the west. North to south, it reached all the way from what's today Armenia to the northern deserts of Arabia. It was the superpower of its time. The powerful Assyrian king, Shalmaneser III had expanded these borders considerably, and by the time of his death in 824 BCE, territorially, the Assyrian Empire was the greatest it had ever been. However, while on the outside the Assyrian Empire may have looked invincible, internally, it was being torn apart due to the squabbles between rival claimants to the throne. Shalmaneser had at least two sons, an older one, Ashur-dain-aplu, and a younger, Shamshi-Rahman. Shalmaneser, though, favored his younger son, and he made Shamshi-Rahman his successor. Ashur-dain-aplu, though, felt that being the older son, the throne rightfully belonged to him. He also had a lot of support from many parts of the empire. In fact, in 826 BCE, at least 27 cities, including major ones such as Ashur, Nineveh, and Irbil, revolted in support of Ashur-dain-aplu's claim. However, the capital city of Assyria at the time, Kalhu, known in the west as Nimrud, remained loyal to Shalmaneser and his younger son, Shamshi-Rahman. A civil war broke out between the two brothers, which Shamshi-Rahman and his supporters eventually won. In 824 BCE, Shamshi-Rahman became king of Assyria and took the throne name, Shamshi-Adad V. The civil war, though, had been costly, and due to the vast extent of the empire, Shamshi-Adad V had to rely on many of his governors and field marshals in order to keep the Assyrian state intact. This, though, had the effect of weakening his own power and started what many Assyriologists call the Age of the Magnates. This was essentially a time when high-ranking Assyrians, such as provincial governors, field marshals, generals, and other princes, wielded exorbitant amounts of power not commensurate with their rank. They essentially created their own fiefdoms within the Assyrian Empire, all at the expense of the monarchy. Thus, it was a dangerous time to have been king, or even a member of the Assyrian royal family. Shamshi-Adad V had one thing, or person rather, who may have helped him to wither the storm of political uncertainty that surrounded him: his wife and queen, Sammuramat. She's also one of the most mysterious figures in all of ancient history. When Shamshi-Adad passed away in 811 BCE, his son, Adad-nirari III, took the throne. There was just one problem. Adad-nirari was a minor, probably barely in his teens, if even that old. There was no way that he could govern effectively. And there was no better time for governors, field marshals, generals, or other magnates, all of whom were vying to increase their own power and influence, to plot against or even overthrow the new boy king. Sammuramat quickly went from being the queen of Assyria to unofficially becoming Queen Regent for her son, Adad-nirari. However, she couldn't simply rely on those loyal to her family for support. She had to lead them. This is something which would have been unprecedented in the ancient world of Assyria, let alone the Near East of her time. Here's where the story and legend of Semiramis really begins. Now, I just want to make clear here, a lot of this is simply speculation, as there are no documents or inscriptions which explicitly state any of this. However, several scholars believe that Shammuramat must have assumed the duties of the king while her son was still coming of age. This not only included running the day-to-day affairs of the empire, but also leading armies into battle, which a king was expected to do. One of these was probably a battle against tribes of the Medes, an Indo-European people who by that time occupied many parts of the Zagros Mountains and beyond, as well as the kingdom of Urartu, which today makes up much of Armenia. In fact, during the early part of Adad-nirari III's reign, there were many campaigns against these two foes of Assyria. Though we only have Assyrian accounts of the battles, they essentially tell us that the Assyrian army won most, if not all, of the battles. If the young Adad-nirari was present at these battles, then so too was his mother. Though the Assyrian army was the most formidable military machine of its day, the credit for any victory generally went to the king. However, since Adad-nirari would have been too young to have been taken seriously, both by his commanders as well as his enemies, the credit may have gone to the real power calling the shots, the Queen Regent, Sammuramat. It's not too much of a stretch for Assyria's enemies to have started to believe that they were not just facing some ordinary woman, but perhaps some type of war goddess, or even the goddess Ishtar herself, who was the popular female patron of many warriors since the time of Sargon the Great, nearly 1500 years prior. The Medes and Urartians, as well as the restless tribes in southwestern Anatolia, may have passed down tales of an Assyrian queen of remarkable beauty who was undefeatable on the battlefield, who they believed was a conqueror of empires and a builder of cities such as Babylon and Nineveh. Such tales were probably popular several centuries later when the Greek writer and historian Herodotus was passing through what was then the Persian Empire. Though he was technically born in the city of Halikarnassus, which is today in Turkey, Herodotus is the first European to have mentioned the legendary queen Sammuramat, whose name the Greeks pronounced Semiramis. By his time in the 5th century BCE, the Assyrian Empire was little more than a distant memory. Cities such as Nineveh and Ashur were in ruins, and the people known as the Assyrians no longer ruled a vast kingdom or empire as in days of yore. However, the Medes, who were very close to the ruling Persians, may have still told stories of how their ancestors fought against the great queen Semiramis and the mighty nation that was once Assyria. It's these stories that would have made their way to the ears, pens, and imaginations of Herodotus, Ctesias, Diodorus Siculus, and others who wrote about Semiramis, preserving her in our collective human memory until this very day. So, I hope that you learned something about who the historical Semiramis was. Also, as you may know, this video is part of a collaboration with several other amazing YouTubers, telling the stories of some of history's greatest and most interesting women. Please be sure to check out the other great videos on this topic. I've put the playlist in the video description. Up next we have Dr. Czar from History and Headlines talking about Queen Tomiris, followed by Pete from History Time telling the epic story of Boudica. Once again, thanks so much for joining me, I really appreciate it. If you learned something, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Also check out the History with Sai podcast, where currently, I just happen to be talking about ancient Assyrian history. Also check out the channel's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts for more cool stuff. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next episode.